So when we first talked, when you guys first stopped by, I didn't have all the information yet that the shooter had been in the store previous. And actually, the way, I don't know if you read any of the other coverage, it's just kind of like a day or two after you guys were in here, it just exploded where we got all the information, then everybody found out.
Yeah.
Well, how the federal agents determined that was immediately following the shooting, they were calling the stores, all the local gun stores. They do this, phishing. We obviously are one of the closest ones to where this happened, if not the closest one. And once they had the name of the shooter, so they had the staff. I was unfortunately not here the day when this occurred, but they queried our computer system and ultimately did find the person's name in the system as having made a purchase from us in the past. So they purchased a small, inexpensive 38 special revolver, handgun revolver, and one box of ammunition for it. And it was also our understanding too, later we found this out. We're trying to make this clear to everybody we talked to, but this was not one of the guns that was used in the shooting. We are aware of the 3 guns that were used in the shooting, and we do know where they were purchased. It's not our place to say so. If those retailers wish to step forward, they may, but we do know where they came from, and we do take some solace in the fact that, thank God, not one of the guns from here was used in that. However, we have not been able to rule out. We're still awaiting some inside information we have with law enforcement as to the possibility that that gun may have been the gun that he had purchased to keep for himself, for his suicide following this attack. So we suspect it may be the gun used to commit suicide, but we do not yet have confirmation of that. When they called, they asked, they had 2 names. They did have the name that this person previously went by as a male name, and then they had the female name. But then again, Robin is a unisex name, so that doesn't immediately run a flag as female or male. But they had a Robert Westman and a Robin Westman, and the Robin was the hit. And and the person, from going through the footage and interviewing my employees, that 3 of my employees interacted and dealt with the person when they were in the store, that this person had come in, presenting as a male, acting, talking, dressed, looking, presenting themselves as a male completely through their entire time in the store. And then at the end, of course, the driver's license indicates female. So they put female on the form, the driver's license says female, that's fine. And that's not unusual to us because of where we're at. We do have, all walks of life come in here, and that is not a red flag to us at all. I mean, we have other trans individuals that come in here that are regulars that are great people. So we don't, like I say, that in and of itself is not a flag. So
were there any other flags or anything that you guys took notice of, or was this just a normal purchase from this perspective?
Well, that's what makes this situation so interesting and confusing. And there's a lot of words that could be used to describe it, which, bottom line, that's why we chose to come forward. We didn't have to come forward publicly about this, but we did because of the uniqueness of it. Is this person spent the better part of 45 minutes, nearly an hour in our store. They were friendly. They were talkative. They joked and laughed. They were knowledgeable of guns. They interacted with, 3 different staff members, other customers even, and they asked the right questions. They possessed a good firearms knowledge. They handled a lot of different firearms. They showed interest in hunting guns and in collectible old World War II type guns they handled. I mean, they didn't seem to gravitate towards the AR-15 type guns, at all. It wasn't like that. And even so, some people, that's what they're into. But this person, displayed a broad knowledge of firearms and interest and genuine interest, and genuinely seemed to be having fun in the store, spent time browsing just about everything in the store, which is what we see with a lot of our regulars and enthusiast customers. So that is why this situation is so unique. Is we are good. My staff are very good, and they're very well known by our local and federal law enforcement in picking stuff up, catching these flags and refusing sales, reporting things. I mean, believe it or not, there's an issue they're dealing with just today, as a matter of fact, with the person that they're refusing to sell a gun to because they're crazy, and they've checked a lot of red flags in the way we pick stuff up, and they're all upset that we can't transfer them a gun. Well, we won't, and we don't have to, and that's just the way it works. But this person really was no different than any other, if not were a good, if anything, they stood out as a model customer. And that's what's so crazy to see, that this occurs just a few days after they were in our store, that a person like that could be like that, act like that, could then turn around and go do something like that. It's just, I mean, they were one hell of an actor. I guess that's really about what it boils down to. But no, I mean, some of that can't be faked. I mean, the knowledge they had, that can't be faked. So it's just boggles the mind. I mean, what could we have done? We've all asked each other that repeatedly, all of my staff, and have done a lot of soul searching about it. But the answer always comes back to there's nothing. There was just nothing there that we could, and so they just know, my staff knows that they just have to keep up doing what they're doing and just be very careful and obviously learn from this, but maybe watch others even closer. That purchase permit that the person had was legal. It was valid. It was fairly newly issued. But all their credentials checked out, and they passed the background check, with the federal NICS background check.
So having seen this customer who seemed almost like a model customer, what are your thoughts on what I mean? And you said you spoke with your staff, but like what could have possibly stopped this situation, or what do you think could have changed any of this?
Well, my opinion on what could have prevented this from happening would be, I understand that there were some issues with this person in their childhood, or I would say prior to the age of 18. They were just in their early 20s, so that was not very long ago. Nothing in the background check systems look at juvenile records at all. That's like sealed. So like you could have been a terrible criminal and have felony convictions and whatnot, in your teens, 16, 17 years old, but you turn 18, that all goes away. You can go get a purchase permit. You can go buy an AR-15 the next day, or a handgun. You got to be 21 to buy a handgun from a dealer, but you can own and possess and purchase a handgun private party as long as you're 18 or older. You can buy an AR-15 from a dealer at age 18. Person had a significant mental health history, much of which was prior to the age of 18. But again, there's no mental health connection in the NICS background check system, which I think would catch a lot of this stuff. But how do you do that? I'm not a politician, and I don't pretend to be one or an attorney, but I know there's a lot of legalities with mental health records and medical health records for that matter. But, and many of us and many of my staff would echo this sentiment that we feel mental health is the big one. How do you integrate that while protecting someone's privacy, and having, I think juvenile records should never be sealed. I think that should be relevant all the way back, to these background checks, as should mental health. There were signs with this person. Absolutely, there were. There may not have been the day they visited my store, but these things were cooking and marinating for years with this person. People knew the information was out there. It just was not able to be used in a way in which would have prevented them from obtaining the permit to purchase, which they used to acquire not only the handgun they purchased from us, the 9mm handgun they purchased from another local retailer, the AR-15 they purchased from another local retailer. They used this permit to purchase those two weapons, as well as also a shotgun. The shotgun that was used didn't require the permit. There were signs out there, red flag laws, rat on your neighbor, and say they're dangerous. That's all the kind of stuff that they're going to need to sort out and find out how to put in there and make it work right and make it fair without infringing on people's civil liberties and their privacy. And also not infringing on their rights to get a gun. I mean, there's a lot of fine lines, but at the end of the day, the mental health thing, I think, is the biggest hurdle, that big can of worms and very difficult to work with. But until they find a solution to that, I'm sad to say these things are going to keep happening.
Well, in the case that you do sell, or you learn after the fact that a firearm that you had sold was used in a mass shooting event, is there any sort of protocol there, or you guys mentioned that you guys came together and spoke, or do you recommend maybe your staff go see a therapist, or is there any sort of
with the staff, that's entirely up to them in how they if they're affected by it, and everybody deals with things differently, and the rest of the staff is very cognizant of that. And I mean, they have access to numerous resources, and they do through our insurance as well, if needed. And absolutely, they're made to understand that there's no shame in that, and that there's no reason to feel inferior or embarrassed among the guys, because those things affect people. Especially, I mean, if you sold a gun that somebody used in a murder, I mean, that's gonna that's even the hardest tough guy, that's gonna hit home to some degree. So these guys are well aware that they need, whatever they need, they've got the support.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all, guys. Thank you.
And if you have any questions about Japan.
All right, you take care now.
NEWSDIG